Okay, welcome folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions Committee. And this is Wednesday, April 30th, where we don't have much scheduled, but we are going to be working on going through a bill that we had shown some interest we wanted to work on. And I want to spend some time going over the bill to see what concerns, what questions people have. So when we have DOC come back in, he can be a little bit more focused than what we ask of them. We also have this document here that DOC gave us, and there may be some notes on that. So let's start going through it. The first bit is looking at telephone use, and Troy, you can help us out a lot because this is your bill. And the question is that I would have, because I know in the old days, they didn't have tablets. And the way that they access the phones, there was like a community phone in the community room. It was basically a wall phone. Back then, I don't know if that's what they still use for that. I don't know if they use it through their tablets. I also know that DOC works with the person to require that only certain people, the offender and detainee, only have access to certain people. It's really limited. It's not a free-for-all that they can call anyone. So I don't know if folks would be interested in understanding that or not.
Yeah, I would.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's we're just starting the conversation. So for phones, what would people?
I don't know how it works.
We received quite a bit of testimony from DOC about the phones.
We did.
I don't know. I know we're looking at the cost in the contract.
Because we heard testimony in other states, right? I think.
The contract was posted when Calvin came.
Yeah.
What could I do? I just had to fill up. I leave the house.
There are things on the phone.
Well, I mean, testimony we've heard so far, identified how in Massachusetts, the number of calls, frequency of calls, number of calls went up once they started covering the calls. I would love, and I can do some digging. I don't know where we would find this. And I sent everybody an article on it. I would like some testimony on, right, that my take on that data is that's an indication that people didn't have enough access
To
begin with. Yeah, right, for the support. And once it became less cost prohibitive, we're getting a better indication of how frequently somebody would want to call their systems of support. So I don't know how we get at that testimony, but I do know there's testimony that connection, but it's written, right? There's no local experts, I don't think.
Right.
I can have this conversation with Abby too on Monday when I have a meeting with her to see if she has any thoughts on that sort of data, but I don't want this will surprise nobody. I don't want, this isn't a bottom line issue for me, right? This is how are we supporting our incarcerated Vermonters? What's the actual cost? Let's have that conversation, but I don't want to presume that more calls is inherently a bad thing. But I don't know where we find the testimony to start picking at that.
So right now, their communication types are phone, voice calls, tablet messages, and tablet video calls.
Yeah.
And then my question is, how and who gives the approval call list? And then the current cost is less than 6 cents a minute. Less than 6.
There's an entire schedule depending on what type of communication it is.
Medium you're using.
Tablet messages is 25 cents.
No, it is 6 cents.
It is 6
Yeah.
cents, yeah. Tablet messages is 25 cents a message, and they weren't sure if the charge was just on outgoing or ingoing. And I think that could be true for the tablet video call.
But that was really cheap. That's 2.5 cents a minute.
Right, the tablet videos. But who pay, you know, my question is who pays? And if the person doesn't have the money, how do they have the access? Because not everyone has money.
Now, there's free calling, but it's extremely limited. Was it once a week or something like that? You were given a call. I don't remember exactly. I have to refer back to the testimony, but there was very minimal complimentary access.
And we're contracting with Teef, that's the vendor. And the current vendor is
They
Viapath.
were saying under the new contractor, there's 2 free calls per inmate per week.
Per month.
Yeah, a week.
Yeah, I had it I wrote down, it was 2 free calls a month. And I said underneath there, boy, that's generous.
I got
I
a,
remember
Is
you
that
saying
the
that.
new one, the IC Solutions, is that?
I've got that as mine.
I just have it, I had it at 2 free calls a month, but it could be a week.
We'll just get it clarified. That's all.
So, and it is Alice, it is the new contractor.
With IC.
Yes. Cause I've got it,
Do we know whether the messages, the phone calls are monitored or whether they're confidential?
I think it depends. I don't know.
I mean, with a cell phone, I'm not too sure how you.
They don't have cell phones.
Right, but they have tablets, I'm sorry.
The email I sent you all on the telecommunications piece was April 21st. And then there's a study and 2 articles in that, in case you're interested.
good.
And I have a note that the new vendor that will kick in June, they'll provide the tablets.
Mhm.
Yes,
And the
Wi-Fi.
phone tablet message costs will remain the same under the new vendor. And the video costs will decrease to 16, what? How can that doesn't look like a decrease to me. From 2.5 cents to, I guess, doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think.
Is that 16?
Well, it is, but they're talking about the messages, I think.
They're combining these two?
Well, that one, the messages, yeah, to 16 cents. I guess.
No, it's
25.
phone and tablet message costs will remain the same. So you got 6 cents for calls per minute and you got 25 cents per message. And then your video calls will decrease to 16. So I
Right, from
wonder,
25 cents.
well, it says 2.5 cents for tablet videos. So maybe it is
Oh, you're
25
right, tablet
cents.
messages.
Maybe it is 25 cents and not 2.5.
You might be right. They might have a typo there.
May I ask, Troy, your interest in this is because you believe this is gonna help in their rehabilitation.
Well, I have a few concerns. I do believe that. I also, I believe that when we have continuous and unrestricted access to our circles of support, we're healthier individuals. I just think that's true for anybody. I have a problem with exploiting a captive audience with these sorts of costs.
The cost,
Philosophically.
the cost.
Yeah.
Well, the question, and that goes back to how many folks who are incarcerated do not have access to funds to put in their
Right.
little
Yeah,
account?
It's an equity question.
It's an equity because some families do provide dollars, not earning anything in there. So how are they getting, because they used to do collect calls, but it's not collect anymore.
And you heard Freer today say that one of the things they do is provide donations to folks, commissary accounts
Right.
for folks who can't afford or don't have families that can swim.
But particularly for folks down in Mississippi. You know, we got 120, 125 folks down in Mississippi, so it's not like they're getting visitors. Family visitation.
I mean, I gotta get, the representative from Burlington back on this. I totally agree with him that people being able to call their people while they're in jail, or being incarcerated, sorry. I think is imperative to their well-being on a day-to-day basis. And if we think people are gonna try to, as Kevin has mentioned, get people to maybe detox, to maybe work towards not, then the one thing they're gonna need to rely on is their family. And I think that's a pretty inexpensive investment, to be honest with you. But anyway.
Kids, talk, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I mean, I see, especially with the telecommunications piece, keeping those lines open, especially when the family's not the victim or part of the victim circle, especially, but no, I think that we should take that under consideration. And I do want to say though, even though it may sound harsh, I know we're talking about that the company, whether it's 2 times a month or 2 times a week, that they're not charging them for the calls, that they're free of charge. I mean, they really don't have to be doing that at all. So the fact that they're doing that is a step. I don't know if there's a limitation on the number of minutes or how long they can stay on those calls, but I think that's a start at least. But I think it should just be, with the advancements we've made, it should just be free.
I would also have a question. Is there any cost to DOC? Or is it totally being paid for by the inmates?
Or no.
I wonder that with my own phone bill.
No, I wonder,
When
I
we
wonder
get
if
to it-
there's any cost to DOC, or is it all funded through the charges to the inmates?
I don't want to get ahead, but I think that there might be an opportunity between sections 1 and 2, and I'll wait until we get until 2.
You gotta read the bill. You
They
gotta look
said
at the
the-
bill,
I thought they said it did cost them a little, but it wasn't a lot.
right? So your bill changes it to the department's cost. And what they said here, that the estimated cost at current levels for us to cover would be approximately 1.3 million plus.
And if you saw increases like Massachusetts, it'd be probably 3 million, I would say somewhere based on their percentages.
So as of the volume, in December of last year, incarcerated folks made approximately 80,000 phone calls in December 24, what's a holiday season, and 3,100 video calls. That's what was in the document from DSA. So I've got a whole list of things.
Did anybody hear why there are no incoming phone calls at this point?
Well, that was my question. Are there any incoming phone calls?
I noted that there are not.
Only from the lawyers, I think.
Question is what's the logic behind saying nobody can call in other than your lawyers?
Scheduling.
Well, someone's sitting there having to answer it and tell people, then you have a full-time, switchboard operator.
We don't know that. If they had.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just,
If we had phones on the wall and they could call out locally, they could know when somebody's calling in. I'm not saying that's what should happen. I just want to know why currently it's restricted to no incoming phone calls. Is it for security reasons? I don't know. I've watched too much TV.
It's one of my things. How do you monitor incoming phone calls and do you even allow incoming? That was one of the questions that I had written. So what I've got that we'd like DOC to respond to is, do they do all the calls on the tablets or do they also have that wall phone? Who determines the list of approved individuals per inmate in terms of who they're allowed to call? Who approves that, and about usually how many folks are allowed? Do people have enough access because of the cost? If an inmate has no money, how is that addressed? Under the new contract, which is IC Solution, how many free calls and the fee, free, I think that it's free calls. And clarify the fee to us.
Did we do that?
Is there still a question on, is it 2 free phone calls per week? or
It's
month?
per week.
It's per week.
Per week.
I didn't know if we said that or not. It's per week.
For my record.
That's what I remember, but
It's week, not month.
oh, it is. Okay.
I would love to go a week without only making 2 phone calls. I could say that for most of them.
There you got me on that.
How?
Paying attention better than I. Week. Still too big.
Then I also have, are the calls confidential or are they monitored?
Right.
They were a mix.
Yeah, we gotta find out why. And do they allow incoming calls? And how do you monitor that? And if, is there any DOC cost to the system, knowing that inmates are paying? And is there a limitation on the length of calls? That's the list I've got for DOC to respond.
A lot of no cost to the state in the contract. I haven't found the cost to the state yet in the contract.
Did they ever answer the questions, security concerns at the end of their? I'm not sure I even understand the question. DOC does not have enough employment opportunities for the 1,400 individuals in custody. Sub-bullet says, creating this many jobs would require major infrastructure upgrades to programming space / Wi-Fi. I don't even understand what the.
You said
again?
they're talking about work
Yeah,
programs
talking
inside the
about work
facility.
program. That's where you increase the wages from 25 cents.
Oh,
That's
so they're saying that
That's
the
not-
incarcerated get it, but the employees don't get it, so now you're treating the incarcerated better than the employees.
Maybe, I don't know, but you're into the work program, we're still on the phones.
Well, but part of it is existing systems, commissary, et cetera. So it's all under one, isn't it?
This is.
We got that part.
Understand? But you don't think that has any bearing on communications? So the employees have to pay for it, but the incarcerated don't have to?
Hey, for what?
Their phones.
I don't think so. No, where are you reading that?
Wait a minute.
Between the lines.
But that's,
Oh,
that's.
so
It's
we're-
under facility work. It's under
That's the work.
facility work, but I'm.
We haven't had any testimony on that one because we're gonna reschedule that.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm getting ahead. Didn't mean to.
Yeah. So anything else on the phone thing before we get into the commissary? Anything on the language as well? What the language does, it shifts it away from the inmate paying to the department paying for the contract.
Group asked the question, what's the situation in Mississippi?
Right.
Yep.
I know from a constituent issue that they have a family member down in Mississippi, and they would send the person, make sure that his account had money so he could call. Oh. I remember hearing that.
What it's worth, Nicole said, and I quote, "Not many complaints about no funds available for using this service."
Did you have something, Joe?
Well, are we on commissary now?
No.
Then I don't.
So one change, it's on page 2, line 4.
Mhm.
An inmate shall be allowed easy access in placing collect telephone calls upon admission to a correctional facility. So my question is, this is current law, what the bill does, it changes that. But, until we do the bill and it gets signed into law, the law stands that they are placing collect calls. I wonder if they're still doing it. That's the current law.
They say, didn't he?
So they would be,
Someone answered that, I think.
I don't know, I don't remember.
Oh, they have to pay to call their attorneys, but the attorneys can call in for free. So I got that.
So they have to pay to call the attorney?
Yes, they do.
Where do you see it?
It was a note that I
Yeah,
took.
Mhm.
Hopefully it's better than my month or week.
I would suggest they email them to get billed less, and plus you can hold the attorney to what they said.
Mhm.
There you go.
Matter, I think it's the same idea.
Do they have access to Wi-Fi?
they may not have access to emails.
It is a true story, though, don't.
Yeah, they may not have access.
Sure.
Tablet messages with
They may
that.
not have access to them.
Yeah,
Their tablets are not like ours,
right.
where they can do anything. It's very limited. Where they can go on the internet, it's very limited.
Which is a good.
Yeah, but how many of them go into, how many folks go into a prison situation with a phone book, having people's numbers even?
Well, it's on their cell phone. It's on their cell phone.
Okay.
People have numbers on their cell phone, and that's all done in booking or cell phone.
But are they allowed to keep their cell phone with them? No, I don't.
In fact, it depends too, if even law enforcement picks it up. But if they're coming in as a detainee, I don't know if law enforcement keeps their cell phone or if they're kept at booking.
Right, well, even that, the charge would run out as well. So
What?
the charge would run out as well. I mean, I'm just not seeing where
I
people,
don't know what happens to their cell phone. That would be a question.
how does that play into the picture?
Yeah, like where do you get the list of the numbers, yeah.
Confusing myself, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm done.
Under existing communication services, it says current costs, tablet video calls are 0.025 cents per minute. I've got to note, the target is to have one tablet per inmate. So that's implies that some have tablets and others don't.
Yeah, and the new vendor provides the tablets. That's what I
This
had
summer.
this summer.
So-
Right,
And I don't know that it implies that. It
Month
implies
two.
that tablets are shared, but not that one person has it, one doesn't. Like it might be in the community room or something. I don't know. I'd be interesting to find
And
out.
so just to play devil's advocate, people who have talked to me because they're aware of this kind of thing, they're saying, well, everybody out in the world doesn't have a tablet. Everybody out in the world doesn't have. That is gonna be the pushback from people that, why do they need this? And that's why I asked the first question, if we believe it's helping them be prepared to be released, then we need to rationalize that. It's not an equity thing, it's a, what's the value to,
Well, the tablets are also used if we had Wi-Fi in there. CCV could start offering more courses through the tablet.
Correct, yeah.
If we had Wi-Fi.
If we had Wi-Fi, which I think is still the plan to get Wi-Fi in there.
The money's still in the budget, right?
Well, it was in DOC's budget. It was implied in DOC's budget that they would fund $1 million. That's what was implied. Yep, so that's another question. What happens to their cell phone? Does each inmate have a tablet?
Now, someone just asked the question if they had a tablet. Again, I can't imagine any of these folks carrying a tablet into the prison. I mean, maybe I'm.
No, it's provided to them.
Okay, well, someone made the comment if they had their own.
No, they don't. Everything is confiscated. They don't have their own clothes. When they come in at booking, all that
Oh,
is.
see, I know that, but someone mentioned that and I thought maybe it's true.
Everything is taken at booking.
Yep.
They're given a uniform, everything, their clothing, everything is taken.
Well, and I made the comment because it's under the heading existing communication. It says tablet video calls and it gives a price. So how in the world do they decide who gets a tablet and who has to share it? You know,
That's what we need to ask.
yeah, that's, I'm just answering Mary's
Right, no, that's the
question.
So anything else in terms of the language in the bill?
Relevant to section one.
Yeah,
See, right now, if you go to C, when an inmate requests and receives a list of parties approved to receive telephone calls, the inmate shall be provided the option of using a debit or collect call system. That's current law.
Oh, I see, because it's
You've gotta go to
scratched through, but that's what was in current.
That's current law. If you don't change it, it's current law. And how
Got it.
does it work? How does current law right now work with practice? And then if they have a debit system, the inmate shall pay for the telephone service at time of use. And the cost of that service will be automatically deducted from an account maintained by the inmate for that purpose. That is current law. If you read the bill,
Right.
what's crossed out is current law.
Mhm.
So you have to find out how current law operates and where do they get the money in their account. In current laws, any contract to provide telephone services to inmates shall be negotiated and awarded in a manner that provides the lowest reasonable cost to inmates, to their families, and to others communicating with inmates. That's current law. So what the bill does, it shifts all the expenses away from the inmate
To
and
us.
DOC picks it up.
And generally, what do we think this cost is total?
$1.2 million.
1.3 plus
1.3.
million.
At current
Plus,
at current rates of usage.
so 1.35.
To cover annual costs of phone calls is approximately 1.3 million plus. It's right here. But if it was, what they saw in Massachusetts is if the department pays, then the usage goes up.
It
quite a bit.
doubled.
It's not quite the same thing, but oftentimes there are lobbyists that give us free pastries in the morning. Yeah, I would venture to say that there are a lot more Danishes that take a ride when they're free than if you're paying $5 for them.
You got it.
And it's not the same thing, but there's a similarity there. It's free.
Of course there is.
And coffee's free.
Well, that's what I was gonna
We work
mention
a long
earlier.
time on that now.
Yeah, oh, I've been 45 minutes.
It's like, for God's sake.
But there's true.
There's data out there and I'm not going to do a good job of summarizing it, but it's when the shifts that happen when, as a society, we stopped punishing left-handed people. Then all of a sudden, the
We got
number of
punished.
left-handed people increased, but it increased to a plateau, right? Because suddenly it was, there was not the stigma attached with identifying yourself as a left-handed person. Again, I don't know the details. It's easily found research. So anytime you're doing a drastic change like this, where something suddenly becomes available, whether it's the removal of the stigma of being left-handed or
It's not that bad.
or
There is-
that it plateaus, that, yeah, I don't doubt that there's gonna be an increase in cost, based on number of calls provided. But to me, that's not the central question. To me, the central question is, why are we limiting access to support? And we don't, there is an unknown question there about how that's gonna change if we were to make this change. That is an unknown.
And not a lot of inmates have financial capacity outside. That's also the other thing. A lot of inmates the families just aren't there.
It goes back to Kevin's question from earlier, comment, which is you can't, at least in my mind either, you can't make an issue or make a argument that it's about equity, right? Because out in the general population, they don't have it. So then your argument goes, but here's the value that it adds in rehabilitation, et cetera, to have somebody come out of the system in a better place rather than a worse place.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
But well, I mean, at least that's how I'm going to look at it. Is like, does this have value? Like, I don't want anybody to be suffering, but like, that's the way a lot of people are going to look at it and say, well, regular general population has a path, but the value of this population of everybody having one is because of the rehabilitative blah blah blah. You know what I mean?
So I want to be very clear because the term equity and equality often get mixed up and misused. And you cannot compare, it's just not a fair comparison. You can do it if you want, but it's not a fair comparison to look at what people who are incarcerated, who have had their liberty taken away from them, have or possess, and you can't compare that to what people who have not had their liberty removed maintain, right? There's an absence of choice there. That's kind of central to why I'm doing this or suggesting this legislation is the state takes on an obligation when they remove the liberty, when they decide to remove liberty of people who have been incarcerated. So the equity statement comes in within that group. Equity within that group who have had their liberty removed. And let me just do this again. I know I've used this analogy before. Equality is giving everybody something, right? The analogy I've used before is somebody walks in the door and says, you all get a free pair of shoes. They're all going to be size 11. It's going to work really well for me. 12 works better for me than 11. It's going to work really well for me. It's not going to work well for anybody, but that's equality.
2 feet more.
Everybody gets a size 12 pair of shoes.
Just a paper.
Equity is,
I don't know, man. It's a philosophy class.
equity is everybody gets a pair of shoes that fits them. Everybody gets their needs met, right? So here, the equity conversation is, what do our incarcerated population need to get their needs met? That is a different question for folks who are incarcerated than it is for folks who are not incarcerated. What are the needs that we need to meet?
Mm-hmm.
What are the needs we're obligated to meet? We probably have different thresholds for that in this room. I know what my threshold is. I think we have an obligation to keep them connected with their circles of support.
So I agree with you. But my point was, you still have to deal with the general public who's going
I get that.
perception.
Yeah.
And you're in being able to frame it in a way that they understand it, whether, because Joe kind of joked about it, but you can only get into so much philosophy with general public.
Yeah, I get
You
it.
have to put it in terms they understand. Well,
Absolutely.
here's why this should make sense to you, even if you don't agree with.
Yeah.
You know.
And, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And philosophically, the opposite side of your coin is the state didn't take their freedom. The offender took a risk and gave it up when they got caught.
The state took.
So the state isn't on the hook for this.
The judge made that.
The judge took over the judicial
But the
system.
person that offended took the liberty and did something against the law that put them in prison.
It can be true. at the same-
Rarely does somebody make a mistake and get put in prison. I would stand behind that.
You can't make,
We can agree that there is an
Rarely.
absence of liberty.
Very rare, very rare.
We can agree that there is an absence of liberty. Yeah,
Prison
Well, I
absolutely
think-
liberty.
Absolutely.
an absence of freedom.
But it was
So that-
forfeited, not taken.
Great,
Is what I'm
but,
saying.
but the absence exists. Fair?
Oh, true.
So that's what we're looking at. Now that liberty has been removed or given up, now that the absence of liberty exists, we have an obligation as a state to address the conditions within that absence of liberty. I'm getting to, it's late in the afternoon and I'm not doing a good job.
They're under our custody.
Yeah.
Which is why, for example, they have universal dental care and in the general population, it's not.
Yeah, and to raise that, I remember I was up in the
We
Newport,
have free game.
I was up in the Newport facility.
I don't.
15.
I was up in the Newport facility, it must have been
Never pay for.
25 years ago. I was up there during time, and the superintendent was bringing us around, and I remember there was a incarcerated person came up to her and was talking about when are his dentures coming in. And the person, I think, had a really long sentence. And when we walked away, I said to her, the superintendent, I said, how do you resolve this? That here's someone who's incarcerated under our care is getting dentures. And some folks on the outside aren't. She said, you know, they're under our care and custody, and the person has to eat. It's as simple as that. They have to eat. And if they don't eat, there's going to be a lot more health issues that we're going to have to deal with. I mean, it was just pretty succinct. Person has to eat.
And that's the line we're trying to draw. Because we're not gonna put a swimming pool into the prison.
Right.
Because exercise might be good for the prisoners.
Oh,
We're not
they-
gonna do that.
Right.
So we're
Right.
drawing a line that says they're incarcerated. We want to rehabilitate that versus cost versus a lot of other things. And that's the line. I mean, yes, they have to eat. In my opinion, they should have all the clothes they need. They shouldn't ever have to buy a hat to stay warm
Or a coat.
or a
They
coat.
weren't having
but-
coats.
But that's my line where I'm drawing it versus a tablet, which I say, hey, I don't know.
But the tablet's very limited in what they can use it for. It is not, they don't have access on the tablet like we do. I think we have to be very careful on that. It's very limited what they can use it for.
Yeah, I'd almost describe it as like nourishment, you know, you only have so many hours. You have so many hours a day you have to fill in corrections. And all this goes to building a culture that's rehabilitative, you know. You're going to fill that time with something. Down in Mississippi, they fill it with video games, right? Now that to me is not something that they need, you know, but they need something, you know, and if it's something that can get them in connection with their family, do something positive for them, I think it really helps the culture of the facility overall, which helps the people who work there and, you know, helps people on the outside too. It's,
I have to share another one that I'm hearing from people that with the visitation. Those who have been involved as correction officers are saying, you know what? A lot of contraband comes in,
Mhm.
baby diapers and this and that, and the work it takes and the risk to the prison.
We know that. Yep.
And even the benefit to the children, sometimes the children are more traumatized by being brought into the prison than, not always, but there's a trade-off there.
And that's why we work so hard to get kids apart in there, because there's more structure to it. There's more control, there's more structure to it. And then it takes the pressure off of our correctional staff for that. And there isn't so much contraband that comes in.
Right.
Because contraband does come in.
Yep.
Through visitation. Contraband was also coming in through drones. And we took care of that. We dealt with that about 5-6 years ago. These drones. Because there was real concern of security issues with that and contraband. So these are things you don't normally think about.
No.
But let's get back to telephones. We'll figure out the tablet question. How much access, where do they go in their tablets? How do they control it? And the costs. Okay, so let's go to commissary.
This should be good.
I have a question.
Okay, commissary. Where are we, folks? What's the question?
Mine is, well, it's better, more Joe's question, really. Well, how's the flow of the, commission go? Yeah, kickback, however you want to call it.
No.
And how does that work? And I would like to see, yeah, I guess that's my biggest question, is how that flows and how it works. Who gets the decisions? You know, if it goes into a rec fund, then who makes the decisions on how it's used, et cetera, that kind of thing.
Cause Troy and I would go walleye fishing where you would.
I would not.
So somehow deciding who gets the boat and who gets the,
Yeah. It's a good point, Kevin. I mean, it's probably your best all day.
I
Building
get
bridges.
like, no,
Building
I
bridges.
had the S. I had the S on the dates. That was my one positive contribution to this.
Yeah, it's closer to luck.
So what you've got here, Troy, is an evaluation of the contracts, which is a report back to the legislature in terms of how each vendor offers its services to the incarcerated person at a price substantially higher. That's basically what it does. Got that, so that's new. And then if you go to section 4, page 4, this is current.
Or is all minimum wage.
This is all minimum wage.
Let's page 3.
So the only thing you've got for commissary is
Sending
Fair
property.
market value.
Not to exceed.
the 10%.
Again, discussed.
Shall be negotiated. So right now, there's no statute that deals with commissary anywhere?
It didn't appear to. I know the answer to that question. It's been a while since I was looking at this. John certainly didn't put this. How did he do this?
Section
It's a
28,
brand new section.
it's a brand new section. So is there nothing with commissary at all in statute?
Didn't they say they were going, we could come up and see?
What?
Didn't they say we could come up and see one? But they're,
We could come up with what?
We could go talk about the phone.
You got it in statute.
We must.
We do.
Ancillary
I
fund.
got it here. It's called the Inmate Recreation Fund.
Okay, that's the,
Yeah, it goes to the record.
Oh, not entirely. Yeah,
okay.
maybe he did.
are you out of here?
For what?
The block, hang in there.
Thanks.
So what's so Title 28, what section?
We got two places where it pops up here.
You speak about the commission?
Title 28, Chapter 11.
You got commissary there?
Commissary.
It's a rec. fund.
So, but within those commissions, so how much are they? We know the percentage, but we don't know the dollar value. And how are they actually being directed? We're told they're going direct in their entirety.
That's the question we asked when you were gone.
That was the answer we were given, but we haven't actually seen the.
No, well, while you were gone, I asked that question.
But and the other question is, could some of those commissions be used to supplement or maybe even pay entirely for telecommunications?
Okay, good, we got it. We got the language.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't ask that question. I asked the middle one.
And maybe they could.
Well, the answer is yes. It's somebody just got to make the decision.
And then if that were the case, it would give more universal access to telecommunications. And furthermore, those who did have more funds are probably just, instead of spending on telecommunications, could then spend them on commissary. So it wouldn't be a net zero-sum game.
Then we're faced with recreation.
Well, that's the question.
Well, that's, we would need to see that first.
Yeah.
But that commission could help answer the telecommunications challenge, which we just discussed.
So what are you finding there?
Not finding existing statutes on commissary, are you, Connor?
It's, commissary is mentioned, but it's in terms of the rec fund or the employment of inmates here.
Kind of work program, special.
What chapter are you in, Connor?
It just came up in a search for Title
Chapter
28,
11.
Chapter 11.
Supervision,
Statutes online.
adult inmates.
Issue is commissary was not an existing, potentially is not an existing. But the whole section is new,
Yeah, it's not really like defining it anywhere though.
which means it probably wasn't defined before.
It may not be defined.
That's what they're trying to find out.
And I would argue that fair market value is not a realistic comparison because correctional institutes is a small fraction of the total market. It's not comparing apples to oranges. It is comparing apples to oranges, I believe.
What do you mean?
Oh, fair market value depends on what the market is. So compared to other incarcerated facilities, compared to your store, compared to Walmart, compared to
Yes.
BJ's, I mean.
That's what it means.
But the existing
Which
contract,
one are you gonna compare to, is my point.
They'd have to take an average of the stores probably, but
it may not be
It wouldn't be cutting it
statute, but the existing contract that the DOC signed earlier this year says that the pricing should be similar to local convenience stores that are in proximity to the correctional facility.
Yeah.
And if you factor in, particularly if you factor in that, what is it, 32% commission or 31%?
they are.
That they are.
They're not.
I
Not
guess it-
consistently. I have not found rhyme or reason. 1.5 ounce bag of potato chips at the commissary is $1.35. From Amazon. Compared to Amazon, it's 145% markup. Then you go to a 5.3 ounce bag of M&Ms, $4.60, 0.68% markup.
You said a 1.35 bag?
5.3 bag of M&Ms,
No, of potato chips.
1.5 ounce.
You want to get a sample size? There's a vending machine right by the coat room. So go look at it.
And then a 1.5 ounce Kraft salad dressings ranch, 168% markup. 20 ounce Pepsi, 5.2% markup. Chicken ramen, 193% markup. Granger earplugs, 82% markup. Large crew neck t-shirt, if you want a different t-shirt, 150%
Now,
markup.
what's your point of reference?
Depends. Amazon, Staples, Amazon, Granger catalog, Amazon.
Well, I can tell you, so like owning a store, I can buy stuff on Amazon for the price that I would pay from a wholesaler. So their price is definitely like is a price, but you're getting wholesale prices basically. Usually, not on everything, but we buy stuff on Amazon sometimes or go to Costco to resell it because it's cheaper
Right.
than my vendor sells it.
I would actually like to explore that model for corrections and do a state-run
I
commissary
got you.
from that model.
I got you.
You'll end up with the same prices though. Because the reason that a convenience store costs more than ordering something on Amazon is that there's overhead. And if you were to take it in-house tomorrow, now you got state employees who are running it and they represent overhead. And that's gonna probably more than offset whatever you save. I don't know that, but I strongly suspect if you put a pencil to it, you're not gonna be able to run it as efficiently as them. So a convenience store, although it's not quite the same, I think would have more similar overhead to whoever the vendor is selling potato chips in the correctional facility than order on Amazon. Right, where the stuff's just coming out of a hub.
Like I can't compete with Walmart. Because they get bulk sales, bulk purchasing. But I mean, it's worth looking at. I absolutely agree with that, but I'm not sure it's gonna
I mean,
happen.
another conversation should be, is it right for us to be collecting a commission? So if there was just no commission, you back the commission app, that gets you,
Yeah, I don't know.
take 32 points out of everything.
Question, Troy, or maybe Ledge Council, what's the rationale in linking it to the community that the facility is in? Because Why should somebody at Chittenden facility be paying more than somebody in the Newport facility?
I think that's.
Seems like it should be a statewide thing, not the.
Right.
Sure, I think that's fair. I will say, I know that, I'm sorry, I know retail markup for Keith is 10%, if I'm remembering my data correctly, compared to 3% at the likes of Walmart or is it Amazon. I know that Keith is an outlier with regard to how much they profit on this practice. I know that. I don't know the details, which is why I wanted to study. I do think it's unethical to link incarcerated Vermonters' health and well-being, the rec fund,
Mhm.
to how much money they spend at Keith. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know, though, to your question, Joe, if eliminating that kickback and requiring the state to provide a swimming pool, right? I don't know if that gets us to where we need to be for commissary prices. I also know that 75 cents an hour, you know, it's gonna take you 6 hours and 13 minutes to buy a bag of M&Ms compared to 20 minutes worth of labor at $14 an hour, or 38 minutes at $7.25 an hour, which is what I was hoping for. So there's a huge out of balance play here with regard to they don't have access to money. We don't pay them for their labor. And the cost of, you know, a candy bar, chicken ramen is, I think, above where it should be. And we link a new basketball to whether or not they're enriching the Keith Corporation.
Because the rec fund, I'll read what's in current statute. Department shall accept monies generated by commissions on telephone services, commissary sales. And the department would establish that such funds, such monies go to an inmate recreation special fund. The fund shall be used to provide postage to inmates in a manner consistent with department policy. Funds be used to costs associated with the oversight and accounting of inmate cash accounts. And the fund may be used at discretion of the commissioner to hire persons or purchase services, equipment, and goods to establish or enhance recreation activities for inmates confined at the facilities.
I strongly suspect, without getting into where we fall in the morality of charging that commission and where it goes, that if we track those commissions and how they're being utilized, you're going to see opportunities for better expenditures of those funds.
Then the rec fund, you mean?
I would just be very curious. I'd like to see an accounting of that. I'd like to know who has input. We were given testimony that some incarcerated individuals had input on how that's directed.
Because their rec fund can go towards movie nights, to rent a video, pizzas. Could go, I mean, everything happens in the facility. They don't go out of the facility for rec fund. It could be buying exercise equipment. It could be upgrading a basketball hoop, that type of thing.
But who decides?
And how much money are we talking about?
You know, like, is there a coalition or a committee of prisoners? that
The
are elected,
inmates,
or-
this is by statute, the inmates were a process established by the Inmate Recreation Fund Committee. May also choose to create a loan fund. So it's the department shall provide,
Loan fund?
yeah, a loan fund, the operation, I don't know what that would be used for. That's new to me.
Is it all the money or is there money being diverted for overhead and administration? I don't know.
Where's the line for loan?
Inmates were a process established by the inmate rec. So there sounds like there's an inmate rec fund committee, probably at each facility. And they can choose to create a loan fund, the operation of which shall be governed by rules adopted by administrative boards.
So they can loan other prisoners, not their inmates money.
No, from which the offenders may borrow in order to help them attain housing
You get 'em
upon
in.
release.
Get them on the.
those are houses.
Framework.
Who handles the money?
Well,
Being like a banker.
Who handles the money, what?
Who handles the money and whatever the bank would be for? Is there a specific area that happens where they're able, like a banking service? And the
Maybe internal to the department is my hunch.
saying,
And we do know that some of the cash account, it would appear as though some of that account is, when a deposit is made, there's a schedule, but there are fees. You can't just deposit monies into your cash account.
It's an internal fund that the department, what it says is the revenues from these sales. The department shall establish with such monies an inmate rec special fund.
Has any of the more tenured members here seen testimony on that in the past? On the flow of those funds?
No, not really. No, we
Really?
heard more that there's issues with how expensive the commissaries items are and how expensive the phone calls.
or they can't get certain things, or
Yeah, that's what we've heard. We haven't really looked into the cost of it.
And are they really getting all of that?
You mean the rec fund? Are they getting all the money? Or-
Yes, is it really all being spent on rec?
Yeah, I don't
You know,
know.
does movie night cost $3,000 when you got 30 people in a room and you're putting, I don't know, Popeye Doyle up on, I don't know. Like, I'm a bit of a skeptic. Maybe it's all fine, but
Your soccer ball doesn't cost that much.
Wilson.
but everybody doesn't like soccer.
That was an awful movie.
Well, no,
That's my problem.
You like it? You like
that's
that?
everybody's problem.
We can ask DOC also how the rec fund operates, because I think that's what this is also leading into.
Yeah,
And it's different for each committee, I'm assuming,
Mhm.
because there's different needs, there's different space.
you mean not each committee, but each correctional facility?
Yeah. what
Yes,
is
that's okay, committee.
No, I'm not. Because Rutland, they don't have much space outside. Springfield has a lot of space outside. Newport has a lot of space outside. St. Albans is kind of iffy because it's structured very different.
Yeah.
It's
Some.
more building, but it's
Chittenden
more
has
building. Chittenden has nothing. Basically just a little alleyway for a rec area. So every facility is different.
Mhm.
And one thing that might be really good at some point, I don't want to say this when there's a lot of people in the room, but it would be nice to visit a correctional facility for folks, because it is not what you perceive it to be. Once you get in there and you start seeing how they're laid out, and you start talking to officers, you start talking to superintendents, it is not what we think it is.
It's St. Alma's not a place you want to be.
I've only
But
been
they're all
Northwest.
different.
It's the only one I've been to.
They're all different and they're laid out differently. Every facility is laid out different. The reason I'm hesitant to even talk about it too much, is there's always a lot of people that want to visit correctional facilities. And there's high security in the facilities, and when you have to work with DOC, you can't just pop up at a facility and say you want to come in. There's high security.
You definitely can't go in a big group. Or you shouldn't.
But, anything else on commissary? Because we do have language from House Judiciary, I believe.
There's a risk of redundancy. We're gonna ask for how much that commission is.
Yeah.
We want to see a flow on it. And who gets to decide on that flow?
yes.
And because it's a single source, we've only got Keith, right?
Right now, that's,
Well, my point is that to understand why there isn't competition for that volume of business,
Right.
if we don't understand that, we don't understand how they develop their pricing, we're shooting in the dark.
I also don't understand why the commission percentage is not written in the contract that was presented to us.
It should,
I find that strange.
I thought it was 32%.
Yeah, but it's not in the contract. They had to ask for it 4 times.
The other, like,
Yeah, no.
it's a nitpicky thing, but under commissary, the 820, yeah, I kind of almost feel like there should be some kind of more of a description of what commissary is. It just says any contract to provide commissary services to inmates. It assumes a lot there.
Yeah, there's no definition. I don't, well, wait a minute.
I don't know if there needs to be. I was just I'm throwing it out there.
Time I look that way, my eyes go.
So, let's go.
That is right, Gavin.
So I end
Oh,
up
geez.
closing my eyes.
They shouldn't have to buy anything.
You're right, Sean.
Need to buy anything from the county.
I'll never be.
Yeah, there's no definition.
Need, we need to be supplying it to them.
Notice agreement here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's healthier to decouple that commissary fund from the rec fund. too.
Yeah.
Kevin's been in the carrot cake again today.
Come on. It's
Ah.
gone.
I know.
Wired.
Okay. So we got some questions to ask DOC.
Yeah.
We'll schedule DOC to come in next week. or some-
They have committed to Wednesday morning.
Next
Nice.
week on this, right?
Should I just walk in his office?
Yes.
Want to know?
Yeah, yeah, it'd be really good.
Thought we were gonna get a
On the
little
desk,
more
demand some information.
It'd be interesting if
We're
we
still
had
online.
anything.
Yeah, and there's no definition of commissary anywhere.
It just, we're talking about it and it's like, and we have stuff here, but like, it'd be great if it was, I think, spelled out.
Well, I can tell you, knowing corrections and dealing with corrections on a legislative end, a lot of the statute that pertains to corrections is kind of a hodgepodge that was done a little bit here, a little bit there.
Right.
Because there's never a committee up until probably the last 15, 20 years that really had oversight of corrections. So changes were made, could be made in a conference committee on the capital bill on
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
Could be made through judiciary committee because they were working on some judicial stuff and they said, well, we can do this in corrections. So there isn't sometimes that continuity or clarity in the statutes pertaining to correction.
This is only loosely tangential, but JP Morgan made his first $1 million selling defective rifles to the Union Army.
Much of this.
I should- Well, I'm not gonna do that to you on the House floor.
No, please don't. Troy's
I
going.
think it's just a question that it probably would come up normally anyway, but if, do we know what DOD's or DOC's opinion is on providing tablets, et cetera?
Well, they already do provide tablets.
But, well.
They already do. They already have tablets.
Obviously,
Yeah. I mean, we have to find out, I think we really have to find out how the tablets are used, what's accessible on those tablets.
Right.
It's very limited in some ways. I mean, they don't have open access to the internet.
No. Wouldn't be good.
And also, how do they get, I think one thing that's really interesting is how do they get contact information of folks that the inmate can connect with if their cell phone's not with them? Because
That's
all
what
that
I was
contact
saying.
information's on that cell phone.
And that was what I was saying, because even if they take them when they're checking them in, those are going to, unless you're plugging them in somewhere, and I can't imagine they're plugging them in, they're probably just putting them in their little box. So how do you get any of that information or anything? That was where I was going.
You do it during booking, if they have the phone, because law enforcement may have taken the phone. So that's how, I know in the old days, I think it's very different now, but I know 25 years ago, they were allowed 3 people, 3 contacts. Now I don't know if it's still.
Oh,
limited.
really? They capped how many people they could call.
Yeah, 3.
Interesting.
Good
And they have
question.
to be very careful because the person coming in could say, oh yeah, I can contact my girlfriend. Or maybe the girlfriend got beaten up.
Right.
She may be the victim.
Or maybe the child of the girlfriend was abused
Right.
and the girlfriend doesn't want to be contacted. I mean, those are things you have to really look at. For that.
Well, these are also sentenced individuals, so they may still be
Detainees,
or actively working on something
Right.
that maybe is illegal.
you gotta be
You can't do
careful. DOC, and DOC vets that. It'd be nice to know how do they vet it to do that.
A little off topic, but Sean's question about commissary, I mean, I personally think it should be defined somewhere, but, or in statutes, but there is a generally agreed upon definition of what commissary services are. That you can look up online, it'll tell you whether it's for military or inmates or other, but anyway, the point is that commissary does have a definition.
Yeah, just not a state statute.
Yeah.
So that gives a good outline for DOC. We have not gotten anything yet from House Judiciary in terms of how they tweak the language on Senate reconsideration. I think they were still working on that a little bit this afternoon, so we haven't gotten anything. I did talk to Martin about the language changes that we did on the earn time as well as the Vine. He seemed to be fine with that.
Cool.
I know he wants to get this bill out, S-109, either tomorrow or Friday. So, I just wanted as courtesy that I want to see the language on sentence. Consideration.
Mhm.
Let me see the whole. Because we may be putting our own things in that we want, but when we go to vote, are there things in the bill that
Let me,
may not want it?
well, you can always go to their committee page and see what they got.
Because I was going to say,
Where am I
Both-
here?
These are both in 109, aren't they?
Mhm.
Both of these are in 109.
They're all at 109,
Yeah.
yeah, that's 109. You can find out what's going on with it, because it's got a lot of judicial stuff. Kind of a miscellaneous.
but that's what I'm saying, maybe in support of what we're sending to them. But they may have other things in the bill that we may not, we may each have our own, whatever.
Oh, but it came up from the Senate relating to miscellaneous judicial
While
proceedings.
we're here,
And the latest
You must.
draft,
shouldn't.
the latest draft they have from yesterday.
But
Well, let me tell you what it deals with real brief here. Adult court diversion. Appointment and terms of superior judges, judicial bureau jurisdiction. Dissemination of electronic case reports, attorney fees, zip guns, expungement,
What kind of guns?
zip, ZIP.
I
A
don't
person
know
who
what that is.
possesses, sells, or offers for sale a weapon commonly known as zip gun shall be imprisoned not more than 90 days or fined not more than $100.
is it like a ghost gun or no?
I don't know. And they're eliminating switchblades. Switchblades was under that. They're eliminating.
Device that you can make that will use a normal bullet.
Yeah. It's
So
what's
for example,
improvised.
you could have a rubber band that has a piece of metal on it that
Slingshot.
hits the back of a bullet.
Oh, you're banging my slingshot?
No, so say you have a steel pipe. Let's just pretend, just to make it easy for people. You have a steel pipe that your bullet fits into.
Okay.
Okay, let's just say. And so the back of it's sitting there that you can, as Kevin said, say you could pull back. Just like it could be tons of different versions. You can pull back your little thing, and so the nail or whatever hits the primer, boom, goes down through. So it's not that you have a just a what do you call it, rubber band that you're shooting. It's going to shoot a projectile or something, but it's using a different.
We learned something new.
Medium.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Anyway, so that's
So
it is.
what else is in the bill is is cleaning up a definition of victim. There is deposit of will for safe keeping. Statutory form, power of attorney, so there's all sorts of stuff here.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a miscellaneous
I was just told by
office of trust director. So there's all sorts of stuff.
a very reliable, trustable source. So far, so good is what I was told about the bill.
Other than this bill?
Instruments concerning real property validated.
Well, yeah, don't throw something cruddy in there. You're trying to clean up 25 things and then put a poison pill in the middle.
That's what I was saying. We may have all kinds of good things in it,
Well,
but then you have one or two and you're going, I really want
Yeah.
to vote for it.
well, our reliable source, so far so good, so.
They also have the repeal of the sunset on public inebriates.
Yeah.
Is that Mr. B?
Mr. O. But also
That's in there
Mr.
now.
But also Mr.
Be
B.
sunset on inebriates is in there instead of the,
Yeah, that's where it originally came in on this bill.
did it come to us through human services?
They were working on it, I don't know.
A great question.
You should have been involved in
I
it.
was in humans.
They do have a firearm surrender order compliance working group. The AG shall convene a firearm surrender order compliance working group to develop a uniform process to ensure compliance with court orders to surrender firearms. And the group would examine the statutory or policy changes necessary to create that uniform process to monitor compliance, support entities charged with storing and returning surrendered firearms pursuant to court orders.
Proximity to the garbage.
There's all sorts of stuff in here.
Is that, what's that bill referred to as?
Miscellaneous judiciary bill.
Thank you.
Judicial stuff. Then you've got grounds for terminating a relationship of parent and child. That's new language. Penalty for desertion or non-support. So you've got everything here.
That is
I
like,
mean, that's what I'm saying. I could probably vote for most everything and then there's
so
one or
then,
two.
Hopefully not.
you're supposed to vote yes or no on all this.
Yes,
Well, it's all gonna be all, it's an omnibus piece.
But
that's,
unlike Congress, they don't usually stick in some poison pill. So
Well,
not
yeah.
that it never happens, but like
Usually it's you can
You're-
kind of swallow all
and
this.
you're gonna know if it comes out of the committee 11-0, like maybe you still have a principle against it, but
Oh, it came out 11-0?
I didn't say it. I said if it did. But I talked to people over there
Never knew that.
and they say it's okay so far.
Okay.
But they still have tomorrow.
And there aren't wilty lilies in that,
No.
committee, so if something comes out unanimously, it's probably,
Question.
It's made it through the
Yeah.
grinder.
it's probably.
If there's a poison pill in there, can you divide that poison pill out?
Yeah.
You can ask on the floor if it's divisible.
It's not a committee that does.
Usually go to
elections bills.
ahead of time.
It's not a-
So they don't, just random, but
They need the bill.
it depends on if it can be divided. And there's ways that it's just can be, it's like, I think this is separate. Right? There's ways. But again, it comes at 11-0, why would somebody divide it?
Yeah.
yeah, but I,
Because it's not that motion's not gonna pass. So
It's 11-0, that
I-
motion won't pass. And
I'm not a betting man. But unless somebody's absent, I would say it's probably 11-0. We'll know when it votes, but like I said, our old people are like, it's good, so.
hopefully we don't have the language for that.
Alrighty.
what are you looking
Well, I
for?
was looking for the language that we approve
And then
for the second
one
one.
more in the part here.
We didn't even have
Or
it.
was that
That's
you
right,
saying?
'cause he put it up. Can you
And-
get from?
Thanks for
Ben
showing up today, Jim.
Was that my version?
or The latest.
What was the wording on it?
language that Ben came in
What's
here
the wording?
yesterday?
Thanks for
I
showing up.
have.
Thanks for showing up.
And I think who showed up today?
Okay. I'd like to-
Your advice, I remember how you phrased it.
And for somebody you
I
knew,
want it to be a catchphrase. Thank you for coming.
you could also say, it was good to see you.
So they're gonna tweak that language, folks, they're gonna tweak that language for the sentence reduction, reconsideration. I think they're working on it, so we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Mhm.
We may have that on tomorrow, so I think we're done for the day.
Okay.
Thank you for working on that commissary and
Thank you.
telephone thing. At least we got something more structured. So be prepared for tomorrow afternoon. Go take a field trip.
Excellent.
Get out of here. Hopefully, we're not gonna be too long on the floor. And, but we're back here at 9 o'clock tomorrow. For that, and, we're really, on Friday, I wanna clarify this before we leave, Friday. They have that reentry training,
Mhm.
and that's at 9 to 11,
I think it's 9:30, right?
9:30, so we're gonna have to see what's on the floor. And maybe if there's nothing, we can go over there in the morning. We can also, I'm gonna ask this of the committee, I'm willing to do anything. But at 1
Heard
o'clock,
her say that, she's willing to do anything.
well, within reason.
Mhm.
At 1 o'clock on Friday. It was the only time this week we could get Joe Asia from BGS to come in and just talk to us about the renovations up at the mental health secure residential facility. To create forensic beds. It's probably gonna be a short testimony, probably won't go longer than half an hour, 45 minutes.
It's fine.
Do you want to do it Friday at 1 o'clock, or do you want to try to schedule that next week?
You need approval to do it?
We gave them the money in the capital bill last year, but folks were asking about the forensic.
It really feels like a next week thing.
I kind of agree.
What's the first guy?
agree. So next week.
Yeah, push it to next week.
How embedded are you going to be with the conference committee? I mean, that's,
I mean, you guys can hear it without me, because I'm pretty familiar with some of that. The capital bill is going to be on the floor in the Senate on Friday. That's what I heard yesterday. They're bumping it out one day.
This Friday.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll do second and third reading. Suspend the rules, do third reading as well on Friday, then suspend the rules and ship it over to us so that we have it on Tuesday. We might not get it until Wednesday. I just don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if they'll suspend the rules or not. The only way we'll get out of here in any timely manner, folks, is suspension of rules. And what that means, we're gonna start doing that probably in a week or a few days now. What that means is we have second reading, and then the next day you have third reading. And then the bill lays over one day before it goes to the other body.
Good.
Rule suspension, you could do second and third reading the same day, and then suspend the rules and send it to the Senate immediately, and vice versa. It's the only way we get out of here.
Well, it's an annual event, yes.
Yeah.
yes.
It's not.
The only way we get out of here.
It's your-
There's gonna be a lot of rule suspension.
For it.
Hmm?
Go for it.
We're not gonna complain.
The only difference is this year you have more time.
Yeah, unless you get a bunch of 92 to 58 stuff, and then they might not get suspended.
You got that right.
Yep.
The power of the
That could be an
minority
exception
party.
this year.
Power of the minority party. We'll see. We always work with agreements with the minority party.
Yep.
To make sure they're in agreement with rule suspension. If there isn't an agreement there with rule suspension, the minority party can block rule suspension, which delays the action.
You didn't have to agree.
So folks, we're still alive. So I think we're done for today.